Let me know if things are sounding awful in the comments. Let me know if things aren't sounding right or rubbish. I'll try and fix things as it is. I'm not sure. Let's try a random backing track. I've only had the Headrush for a couple of hours, so I'm just playing through it at the moment. It's hooked up into my computer, into the interface, and you're hearing it through this microphone at the moment. I don't know how it sounds, to be honest. From what you're hearing, there's no way of me knowing. But my monitors are JBL LSR 305s. It sounds okay in the room. I'll talk about it a bit more if you want if you've got any other questions, I'll answer them. I think I'll try. Hey Maxim, those are some cool questions. All of my backing tracks and all the ones that people want, they can let me know. I do that on Patreon, is generally where I put them all. Just because that seems to work quite well. The monitors that I use are JBL LSR 305s, which are quite cheap but do the job well for me. And yeah, that's what I use for all of my modelers. And the only time where maybe reverb I feel isn't entirely appropriate is for some kind of like heavy riffing, that sort of thing. Maybe I would turn reverb off, or like funky playing, neither of which I can do at the moment because I've got the Headrush just doing all my tones and it's out of reach. But yeah, I wouldn't use reverb necessarily if I was trying to do some kind of that sort of thing. And likewise, if I was trying to do some really heavy riffs, maybe even double tracked, I wouldn't use reverb for that either. Right, let's see if I can play anything. Hey, Camille. I do sometimes play with headphones on. But generally, I would prefer to play with even monitors at a quiet level. If I go away for a weekend or whatever, which isn't going to happen anytime soon now, is it? Frankly, I would use headphones then when I don't have any speakers to take with me. I generally don't hook up with an amp if I'm using a modeler, just because if I'm going to do that, I would just use the amp itself. So if I'm using a modeler, it's because I want to go direct, in which case I don't want to generally mix it up with an amp. One exception to that is sometimes I would run like the HX Stomp or a Helix with an ascend out to the amp as well. So I'd have like a parallel tone thing going on. That works quite well sometimes. Make requests and stuff, I guess, if you want me to try and play something specific. Probably won't work very well. And let's find another backing. Stephen, no, I'm not going to try an NXR Timmy because I have a real Timmy somewhere. It's over there somewhere. So it doesn't really seem worthwhile to me. I think you can get like a second-hand Timmy for the same price as a new Timmy anyway. Oh, not humble brag. Have you not seen the videos with it? You're probably on a thingy somewhere. Where is it? What's this coral star? Right, to be honest, so the thing about the K-Line Blue Sky is it sounds exactly like this pedal anyway. So to be honest, if it works and stays working, I wouldn't worry. This is my real Timmy. I bought it because I like the K-Line Pure Sky. But secondhand, I think you can get them for like 100 and something quid, maybe. But probably not the time to be buying new gear, is it? Let's be honest. But yeah, it does that Timmy thing, which is kind of like a tube screamer, but with more control over the bass and treble, which is I liked it. Burns, I'm assuming you've got a Headrush. Have you got a Gigboard or the pedal board? What, the K-Line has no soul? Doesn't matter, does it? Maxim, my favorite drive and distortion pedals to play through the Stomp. Do you mean real pedals or do you mean on the actual Stomp itself? And Camille, yeah, I've watched that interview. I watched it over a couple of days. It was really cool to see Eric talking about stuff in that way, and I've never really seen him talk for that long. Real pedals into the Stomp. So the J-Rocket Dude is probably top of the list. The Veteran Fuzz, to me, the Thorpe Effects Veteran Fuzz sounds better than any of the actual fuzzes on the board, on the Stomp as well. I did just test that today. I kind of liked, it's a fuzz that begins with W on the Stomp, which I kind of like the sound of. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Wither or something. Hey, Kevin. You're not the fighter, Kevin Lee, are you? When I demo the HX Stomp in my YouTube videos, you are hearing just it direct into the DAW. So you're hearing direct tone for all of my demos, pretty much of everything, except for when I'm playing through a real amp, in which case you'd be hearing it through this microphone or the Cabzus. But so generally the HX Stomp, whereas using my presets, I'll just put the direct tone because I feel anything else is kind of a bit dishonest. And you never hear, there's never any EQ or anything on that. That's just what my presets sound like. What is a choral sitar? If I sit up slightly. I think I do anchor my pinky. Let me just do some more improv. I think I do. That backing track. So, if anyone tells you that there's a specific hard and fast rule for picking, they're probably wrong, I would say, because if you look at some of the best pickers in the world, even or best players, Marty Friedman, I think that's his name, has a really weird picking technique, which is something like this. Steve Morse has a really strange picking technique. And then obviously you've got things like resting a pinky at the pinky, which people will tell you one thing or another. I think the important thing about picking is to try and find a motion which feels natural to you. So in terms of anchoring, like strictly anchoring, like you see some players do, I wouldn't say I do, but I am kind of resting either with it curled up, kind of like that. I think there's generally some contact, I think. Maybe I'll just do a little bit picking focused playing. I use hawk picks, which are 3mm thick, so quite chunky. So yeah, I can pick either anchored or not. I'm not sure it makes too much difference. One thing I would say is that you do see there's a benefit kind of if you were doing like jazz stuff. You want to be able to use those, I think, for kind of chordal playing. So I guess having some versatility there might be a good thing rather than saying I'm a strict anchored pinky person, unless there's a reason that you choose to be strict one way or another. But yeah, no hard and fast rules, I wouldn't say. And before I used these, I used to use Dunlop big stubbies, I think they're called, but they wear out quite quickly. And I think these kind of grip a little bit. Whereas if I was playing jazz live with the big stubbies, I'd occasionally get a bit sweaty or whatever, and I'd have to keep wiping off the pick. Hey Lee, how you doing? Hope things are okay. Let's try and find something else to play. I don't know why, but at the moment I'm kind of obsessed with Eric Johnson sounding stuff, which is always good, I guess. Let's go with, where is it? Not that one. Well, this one's kind of Eric Johnson-ish. Right, so 2 questions that I need to answer. So this firstly, one from Lee. I'll answer yours in a sec. Chapel home studio, improvisational stuff. So I don't think theory is essential, but I think it matters if you've got time to sort it out and get it together. I think the most important concept to get in your head musically is kind of what is the home of everything. So if you can hear a piece of music like let me just play it in the right key. It's got a really aggressive gate on it. Something like that. Sorry, there's so much delay. But to get a sense of where the one might be if you were playing over something, so you know what key you're in at all times, is kind of what I think is one of the more important aspects of theory. And so really what that means is that if you take like a C major scale, you know, or a song in C major, you would know what is diatonic and what is non-diatonic. And what that means is you know when there's been a key change. Now, if you check out enough of this stuff, you'll be able to do it sort of by ear and instinct, generally, if it's like pop music. But that'd be kind of what I think is most important theory-wise. Things like modes, I don't really think there's much of an application for in modern music. But knowing what key you're in kind of helps. I think if that makes any sense. So I did, piano lessons from age of 5 and all this stuff, and went to school and did music. So I know theory, but it's not necessarily the most important thing, I think, because you can see plenty of decent players out there that don't necessarily have all the theory knowledge that other players have. I think what's important is to have a good grasp of what key you're in. I guess that might answer slightly. And that is kind of also what will help with improvisational stuff anyway, I think. sliding into notes then, Lee. So I think of this as like a more interesting way to sound on guitar, maybe. Obviously, you've got standard stuff like bends. But I also think like a bend is a bit of a more high risk move, if you know what I mean. So if I, in the middle of a solo, go for, sometimes that will bend sharp or flat, and that will throw things off a bit. So a slide gets you most of the way to that sound and is less high risk, if you see what I mean. So I could do this, or that's kind of one of the reasons I like to slide in stuff. Then another thing that I find myself doing a lot is those quick little trill slides. And then sliding also as a way to get between areas on the guitar, I think is useful. And something I don't necessarily do loads of, but I think it's got a really interesting sound, is if you do like bigger slides. So not that. So those are kind of how I think about using slides, and also slide from above. Little chromatic slides. And I guess in a way it kind of sounds similar to what you might hear a saxophonist do, which I quite like the sound of. It's kind of 80s, but I kind of like that sound. Yeah, I think that's probably about all I've got. Oh, the other interesting thing about slides is the slide into bends. So, for instance, not like that. Sorry, anyway, you get the sort of idea of what I'm trying to do. So slide from a long way into a bent note kind of has a really cool, I think, quite surprising, unpredictable sound to it. Again, this is ridiculous amount of delay. Piano, yes, I still play it, and I think it's a really fun instrument. It's not easy though, but I think can be learned. A lot of my gigs up until recently have been on piano, just because it's easier to get gigs on piano than guitar and function well. There seems to be less keyboard players around. What makes something Eric Johnson? For me, it's mostly about sort of tone and not being necessarily afraid to use lots of delay and reverb, as it's kind of part of that aesthetic and sound, I think. Yes, the cliches would be things like, well, I don't really actually play any particular Eric Johnson arpeggios, but I have my own sort of And then the other thing I think is super Eric Johnson is those like Stevie Ray Vaughan style pentatonic licks. What's one of them? That sort of thing. Obviously played better than I can play it. But fast kind of pentatonic-y. That sort of thing that I can't play very well right now. I'll try and do something in a thing. Improvisation is all I do every day, so that's why I guess it sounds naturalish. It's basically all I focus on now. Just do a little bit of playing to see if I can. So just another thing on the improvisation stuff. If I'm doing like a jazz tune, which I'm learning, which I need to do some of today actually, then the improvisation is a lot more conscious. So I'm thinking in my head about what the changes might be. If it's something simple like most of what I play, did I have a beard before? This is still a beard, isn't it? Basically. The stuff that I play generally is quite simple and staying within the bounds of a key generally. So improvisation doesn't have to be a massively conscious thing. I'm just kind of playing. Quarantine stuff, Lee, basically this 2 months of gigs have gone, sort of. So it's not great financially, but I think no one really is doing all that well in the circumstances. So just is what it is. My main influences when I was growing up, I listened to a band called Thin Lizzy, and that's where I learned some of my first kind of solos and stuff from. Then by age 14 or 15, I started listening to bands like Iron Maiden and Dream Theater, and then from there got into some fusiony stuff, and kind of these days most of what I listen to and learn is either like Eric Johnson-y stuff or Alan Holdsworth, or actual just pop tunes that I've got to learn for gigs, or the stuff that I listen to for pleasure is jazz, like Keith Jarrett or Gilad Hexelman or Jonathan Kreisberg or those kind of players. Chet Baker as well, I listen to a lot of. Those are kind of my main influences. Sorry, Chapel, I missed that question. Most of the runs that I play end up being legato. I think it's quite difficult really to improvise if you're a strict alternate picker. Or for me, it is, sorry. It might not be the case for everyone, but strict alternate picking, I think, can be quite, to me, it feels a little bit limiting. I'll try some for a second. What could I do it over? Work out how I'm going to refund you that. You don't need to send money, honestly, but how are you doing in the quarantine stuff? Thank you very much for that, if you're sure that's what you want to do with your money. You got kids, right? Sorry. What do you do, Lee, for a job? And then also, so Chapel, this is for you. I'm going to try and alternate pick anything that I play fast. Software developer, eh? Cool. So you're smart. It's got a really aggressive gate on this. You're a US guy as well, Lee. what things sound like if I try to pick everything. For me, it feels a little bit more limiting in a way. I don't know how it comes across when you're listening to me play like it, but I'm not sure I particularly dig the sound of everything being strictly alternate picked. I think I prefer the fluidity and kind of the ability to change direction that I get from legato stuff. So you're near the Comedy Works, Lee. I think that's right. That's one of the bigger comedy places in Denver, right? I think. Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to be moving to the UK for a bit, are they? Except maybe people coming back from Spain. I can also play faster legato, so if I was doing like a double time run, I'll try and pick that. Coming out of the alternate picking is a bit tricky as well for me. So it's just generally a bit messier if I'm trying to play fast with alternate picking. Let's try again. So that's the limit of my alternate picking, I guess. Yeah. So it's fast, but it was kind of messy as well, wasn't it? Oh, sorry, I did miss that question earlier, didn't I? Emir solo. What do you think is the best way to make the HX tone, HX stomp? All right, I think this was about trying to get tones to translate live. If you're going to be using a full range speaker live, because you're going to be using that as part of the PA rig anyway, I think you're probably going to have to try and tweak that tone with the same sort of speakers as you're going to be using. one of the lick. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So sorry. The main issue that, or the main big difference that I find between a real amp and a modeler is that as you increase the volume of a modeler, things don't necessarily sound better. As you increase the volume of a real amp, things do generally tend to sound better. Like highs seem to get attenuated a bit, and the mids of the amp kind of push out a bit. Like that's sort of the feeling I have. I don't know really if it's true. It might not be, but with a modeler, as you turn things up louder, what seems to happen is with a PA speaker, the highs get even higher, which I think is why Rhett Scholl advises to make liberal use of a high cut. So as a quick fix, if I'm on a gig and things are sounding a bit ice picky, one of the tricks is to go onto the global EQ and knock that down a bunch, a high cut, and that does generally help. But if you're going to be doing a gig with PA speakers and you're trying to tweak tones for it, I think the best bet would be to try and actually get in front of those speakers so you can know how they react. All of my tones are made in this room with these JBL LSR 305s. And so it really is a bit of a gamble when you go out live with them as to whether they're going to sound decent or not. Just depends on also what the sound man is doing, unfortunately. Let's try and play the lick. In what key? I'll get it in this song lots of times. Hey Baker. The worst thing that I find the front of house can do for you, if for instance you're gigging with a modeler, the worst thing they can do is cut out the lows that are going into your ears. So if you do happen to get a sound engineer who does that, it is not fun, basically. Because I personally think that a lot of the feel of a guitar is in the low end, and as long as the highs aren't too ice picky, I can live with a darker guitar tone. But as soon as you start to take out the low end, I feel like things start to feel really, really dodgy. That's like the same with a Kemper or an HX Stomp. I've said it in a few other videos. I started to take out a little mixer with me that I would use the headphone out of either the Stomp or the Kemper, so that I knew that there was no way that the sound man could affect it in my ears. Generally shouldn't have to do that, but if you're working with random sound people, there's really no way to avoid it. They sometimes do funny stuff. Is that Ian Lake Lights? Laker Lights. I think we all have days where we feel like our fingers are stuck, or what comes out generally doesn't feel like what you were intending. When that's happening to me, I try to simplify. So it might mean I'll just try and play along with one song. This tone is not really conducive for it, but I'll just pick a song that I know I like, and it could be something really simple like a Coldplay tune, just something with a repetitive melody or anything, and I'll just try and play that melody, and that's all that I'll do. Just because I feel like that can give you like an easy goal, but it's also helping you to connect your ears with your instrument. Or maybe I'll just do that for a sec with a. What happens to the live stream if I play it? I'll have to just play one of my own tunes. So I'll choose a tune which definitely won't have any copyright stuff. Although it does have a hook that Justin Bieber later used in a song. Where is it? So if I'm feeling dodgy about my playing, I might just pick a tune, a ballad. So this is just an original tune of mine. There's the lick for you. So you're just playing just the melody, and that's all you have to try and get right. It's kind of what I would do if I'm feeling dodgy about my playing. Try and make it lyrical. For example, so that's how I would try to reset my feeling about my playing or whatever. Just try and play a song from start to finish, just focusing on copying the vocal. For instance, it might be what I would do. It'd probably be something more in the R&B realm, or a tune that I know that I like, not a guitar tune. So you're just focusing on trying to play a melody like a vocalist. That's what I would do if I felt kind of stuck in my playing. Because ultimately you're trying to make music, I think, and to be honest, the fast stuff, to me, it's kind of incidental, and then the bits of music that kind of matter more, I think, are the bits that you can sing back. And so that's kind of what sticks to me about solos that I've heard in the past that I've found inspirational. Yes, there's loads of stuff in Eric Johnson's playing, like fast pentatonic runs, that I also find really inspirational, but the bits that I kind of really dig are like this kind of thing. shouldn't go like that. So like little bits of melody and little bits of beauty, I think, just more important than all of the fast stuff, probably. Kunchang Lee, I don't know if you're still here, but my approach to soloing, my main focus is to try and remain connected to what I'm supposed to be soloing over. And that means probably a lot of trying to listen to what's going on. Yeah, so like you're saying there about keeping simple things, keeping things simple, I guess, to reach harder goals. This is something that I've kind of thought for a long time, that the goal isn't really that important if what you're enjoying doing now is enjoyable. So for many years now, the most enjoyable part of playing for me was practice. I think that's only because all I practice is stuff that I like. And so all of my guitar playing is just guitar playing. You know, I'm not practicing loads of diminished stuff or anything that doesn't connect with my ear. So I play a lot of jazz ballads. And even with those ballads, the focus mainly is to try and keep a melody going and connected. I think, yeah, simplicity is probably the goal with most stuff. Shouldn't you be at work, Jake? I'm going to try and pronounce this name. Is it Khaldun Kayat? Sorry if I've got that completely wrong. There's a video on my YouTube somewhere, if you want to go and check it out, of me plugging the Iridium into the Yamaha THR. If any device you've got that's got a flat speaker mode on it, I would use. I did plug into the THR and I found that useful. So yeah, I would imagine that the Katana power amp in would do a similar thing. If not, you could probably just go straight into the front of it on like a flat response, and that would be fine. And Lee says it sounds pretty good too. There's two people that have an Iridium when I don't anymore. And Jake Loosemore is the reason. I'm going to turn off this gate because it's annoying me. So this is me trying to work out how to turn off the gate on this. Keep the questions coming if you've got them. Gate threshold. Can't, I'm in quarantine. So the song that I'm learning this week, by the way, I'm not sure if I can try and... there's no reason that I don't have an Iridium at the moment, except that they don't have any in the country. I don't think. I really liked having it for just plugging in, like for the little pedal demos that I do. If you call them demos, you know, the moments where I might want to just plug a Timmy into something. That's offensive, Jake. So yeah, I used the Fender model on the Iridium the most. So I tend to use like a John Mayer type tone on the Stomp, and it's fine. It's cool. It's cool to have an Iridium too, I think. And yeah, I do like pedals as well. But if the choice was between amps, just ask normal questions instead of weird ones, maybe. What do you think of this guitar, Jake? This is a really squeaky chair. The fave setting, I don't even remember. I think that might be a Marshall. If you mean the actual fav switch bit. Yeah, so that's a Keith Jarrett tune that I'm learning at the moment, but I don't know it very well. Is that Bill Banwell from Building in the Skyscrapers? play that, can I? Who's Jerry Donahue? Is he the manager for Sheffield Wednesday or something? How do I construct my long legato runs? I practice smaller bits of runs, I guess. That's kind of the extent of my practice in terms of that, and then you're just trying to find little routes through the major scale or whatever scale you're using. Tom Quayle talks about this sort of stuff a little bit as well. I guess he talks about if you do things slowly. I think Casper Jalili also does this sort of thing. So start off slow and consistency. Yeah, I've heard of Tom Quayle, obviously. Great player. So that's how I would approach legato runs. I've done a few videos on this sort of stuff. I think what's more important to me is trying to break out of simple that kind of thing, which does have a sound which we've heard more often, and try and get into more kind of irregular stuff, and playing in fours, as in semiquavers or demi semiquavers or demi semiquavers or whatever sort of quaver you want to use. Does help that because you've got 3 fingers and you've got to try and get in patterns of 4 using that. Hey Mark, Guitar Institute or music school? No, I went to a university called Bath Spa for 2 years and I found it really, really unuseful. And I kind of maintain that I didn't learn a single thing there, although they did have a library where I was able to get out things like Pat Metheny and Keith Jarrett and Stevie Wonder CDs, so that was one benefit. I got to listen to some music that I hadn't listened to before, but I didn't find it useful at all. Yeah. Let me look up Jerry Donahue. Seems like someone that I should know of. He's kind of folky. He played with Jerry Conway. I'm going to say no, I don't know any Jerry Donahue stuff. It's obviously My fault, not his. Country and folk are kind of my two unexplored areas of music, more than anywhere else. Let me do some legato-y stuff. See if I can think of any tips. So, right, here's some ideas on legato stuff. So, here's the backing track I'm playing. I would practice things at the faster kind of double speed and also the slower speed. So, ideas, new pathways you'll have to explore slower, and older ones you can retread faster is kind of the concept. So, sorry. So you got a few focuses. One of the main focuses will be timing. So you're trying to be conscious of whatever your subdivision is. So are you playing quavers? Are you playing triplets? That thing. And then the other thing to be conscious of is note choice and whether you like what you're hearing. So I'm just trying to kind of let my fingers run through different things and explore. Try and stay in time. Try and repeat little bits if you can. I'll just continue doing a bit more. So this feels new. So that's a little new phrase that I'm going to try and get in as many times as I can. Hey David, so pretty much always just the major scale is what I'm thinking of, so E flat major for this. And maybe the odd sort of jazzy pentatonic, not jazzy pentatonic, chromatic slide up or something, but major scale is generally all I'm thinking of. Quite enjoyed that. I'm going to go for 2 minutes more or something. If you've got any other questions you want to jump in with. How old am I? How old do you think I am? That's a more pertinent question. You're about right, Sam, unfortunately. I'm 31 next month, I think, depending on how things go. No problem, Lee. Thank you for doing the super chat donation thing. It's really generous of you. Any other questions while I'm still... I'm going to try that little backing track again because I kind of enjoyed the last go through of it. Drop any questions you've got and I'll answer them before I close off. What's the question? I think maybe. Oh dear. It's always gross when the backing track runs out, isn't it? Yeah, I think it was the one that Jason was borrowing. Did you ever play it or not? What do I see when I play? I think the first main thing I try to work on was visualizing. So you know how they teach the modes. It's not really how I think, but I think so. In E flat, I see the E flat. I see all of those, the 7-note patterns. Then there's kind of other structures that I can see over that. One little exercise that's worth trying on that front, I guess, is instead of just doing, just try to do randomness, but within E flat, for instance. So from in E flat, so the goal is not to make anything sound good, but the goal is to make everything sound like it's in E flat, even if you're doing big. And that should, I guess, tell you if you actually know E flat all over the neck or not. So like I said, I'm not trying to play anything that sounds good, but I want to see if my fingers are naturally jumping to E flat flavored stuff, or if I change to, I don't know, D flat major. So that's shapes and intervals, I guess, a little bit. For Ujjwal Gupta, I'm guessing India. I've probably absolutely butchered your name as well. If you're going via the options of a used AxeFX or HX Stomp, I've never played anything AxeFX. I've only really heard good things, but I've got an HX Stomp and I would recommend one. If you can find one used, it's also a lot cheaper than an AxeFX. A lot simpler, less things that you can do with it, but it depends, I guess, what you're going for. So I think I would recommend an HX Stomp. I guess just before I sign off, I'll say there's a video about to go up by the Headrush. Am I sponsored by Yamaha? No. I do have people within Yamaha that I speak to, and they loan me guitars, but I'm not sponsored by them. They don't pay me to do anything. For instance, that Yamaha Pacifica Mike Stern thing, they sent me to borrow for a bit. I bought the 2 Rev Stars that I've got, just because I really like them, and I kind of prefer them aesthetically and playing wise to a Les Paul. And with the coil tap thing, it's kind of a decent thing, but at the moment I don't have any affiliation really. They did send me the HX Stomp way back when. I don't know quite why, but I did the Helix Native video. They did a promo where you could use a trial of Helix Native. So I did like a reamping video of that, which got a little bit of attention on YouTube. And they reached out to me for some reason, and I said the HX Stomp looks super cool, and they generously sent me one of them, which I struggled with for a while, but I find kind of way easier to get my tone out of that than the Kemper now at this point. And I've subsequently bought a Helix as well, just because I wanted to try some more adventurous patches. So that's level of relationship with Yamaha, I guess. Yeah, so I just bought this Headrush because there's the Line 6 Pod Go coming out, and I'm fairly confident with the Pod Go I could get a tone that I liked out of it, but I thought the Headrush is kind of in that same price bracket, and I'd be interested to see what they're like, just out of curiosity. So hopefully this has been vaguely enjoyable. Let me know if you want me to do more of this sort of thing. I guess I've got a lot of free time on my hands now, so I can do this sort of thing. If you've got ideas for videos, please let me know. Also, if you could potentially, if you've got other guitar friends that might be interested in the bollocks that I put on my YouTube or Instagram, whatever, if you could share me around a bit, that might help. I don't know, a bit of a tough time in terms of gigging, but Fender or G&L, it's a cool idea. Isn't the Invader roughly? No, that's probably not, is it? I used to play in a G&L when I just left uni. I didn't find it stratty enough. Also on my channel today, I put up another 7 chords you might want to try video if you're interested in that sort of thing, including this pretty chord and this pretty chord. Wait, that's not right. Well, it's not sounding pretty now. So there's the one, then this chord, and also this one. Anyway, so I'm going to go watch Gotham now and stroke a sausage dog. Yeah. Do I have a Patreon? Yeah, I do. I've got one tier of people on that. I only don't want people to pay any extra, but on that I put all my backing tracks and stuff if you're into that sort of stuff. And sort of you can make suggestions there, or we can make suggestions in the YouTube comments, whatever you want to do. I am looking for ideas for stuff that people find helpful. I don't know the answer to that. They're a German company, aren't they? Let me know when you get yours divided by time, and I'll send you over my profiles that I got for the Kemper if you're interested. There's just a couple of like really nice clean ones of my Electrodyne amp in the background there, and then also my lead tone is like a Mesa Boogie Nomad. I do like the Kemper. It's other people's sounds generally. So I use it for I find it easier to kind of be more me with the HX Stomp or Helix, I think. But yeah, there's still great stuff in the Kemper. I just don't use it for everything. Artists in the neo soul genre, Robert Glasper, I guess. The Bo Dakowicz, if you mean like an Instagram guitarist, I quite like some of his licks and approach. But I wouldn't say neo soul as a thing is anything that I've got into much. My influences kind of are just actual jazz. So like Keith Jarrett. In terms of Instagram guitarists that I dig, Ben Unison I think is a really great jazz player. Casper Jalili is sort of a friend. He kind of plays in that neo soul genre. And some of Tom Nish's stuff is kind of cool in that genre, I guess. Those are my answers on that. Right, so I'm going to go. If you've got other questions and stuff, feel free to leave them in YouTube comments of some form. And again, thanks for watching. If you could do the like and subscribe stuff, I guess that helps. And maybe share a video or two of mine, that would help. And just generally, thank you for watching and liking stuff of mine, leaving comments. That really does help, I think. And good luck. Try and stay safe. See you on the other side. I don't know if this sort of time is better for this sort of thing, but I'll probably be doing a few more live streams throughout the weeks. Oh, cheers, Lee. Lee, if you've got any other further ideas, just leave me a message on something. I'm happy to try and put together something a bit more planned for a live stream if that helps, or little lesson thingies that will go on YouTube. Yeah, see you, Jake. I need that HRM back, bro. But yeah, generally everyone stay good if you can, and yeah, I think there's a couple of useful things that have gone on my channel today that you might like, mostly that chord one, and I will try. See you later. Time for the guitar to go away for the day. Do this again tomorrow night, and if people were around and bored and wanting something to watch. See you all later. Cheers.